Zoom over there like, hey, yo.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, because I don't have to, I ain't gonna do no formal introduction or nothing like that. We could just continue our conversation. We are on air though, recording right now.
Right,
So.
right. Zoom was just like, hey, yo, y'all motherfuckers doing way too much talking right now.
Y'all doing too much, bro. You know what I mean? Like all this good shit y'all talking, man. Stop that shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we was having a very good conversation about like DC and Marvel. I forget what we started at first. What was the initial thing that started the whole? That was the linchpin, basically. But
man, there's a lot said, man. Damn. Everything from the wokeness of DC Comics to the incredible run of Danny Cates with Thor, a lot of the good stuff that they've been doing with Venom and Null, and Marvel comic wise, like some of their titles have just been knocking it out of the park, man. And when I look over at the DC side of things, it's just like, where's your stories? You know, when you see the woke part of what you guys are trying to do and
right.
whatever, but where's your stories? Because at the end of the day, you read comics for stories, for the fantasy and all of that cool stuff. And I think they've truly lost their way when it comes to that.
I think so. I think you right about that. I think, and we that's what we was talking about, is a lot of the political correctness, you know, that was happening in comics nowadays, whether it be Marvel or DC, because I think both in current times I may be guilty of that. DC maybe a little more, who knows, you know, but I know in the beginning, in Marvel's beginning stages, like I know we was talking about at one point how these a lot of these comics are now trying to be woke, but like Marvel was real woke before woke became the lame shit, you know. So like you know, like Marvel was really like pushing boundaries and stuff like that when other comics was trying to keep the status quo and shit like that, you know. When they introduced the X-Men, you know, that was all based off that. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know the story now about like Magneto and Professor X, and how those two characters were based off of like Martin and Malcolm, you know. And so like the down to the ideologies, you know what I mean, when it came to juxtaposing that into the whole mutant versus human argument, you know what I mean. But it was really, you know, like it was a social commentary of the time in real life, you know. So yeah, no, Marvel, and you know, got to shout out the Sirens. They always come at the right time. But no, but yeah, no, they wasn't scared to push the boundaries. And then when we fast forward until like I was telling you how in the 90s, like I had stopped really buying comics in the early 90s, somewhere around that time, just because I was moving around so much. I really lost my conscience when the chick who I was messing around with at the time, she like all those joints. You know what I mean? So
shout out to Black Amber Heard.
You know, all those, you know, just set my heart into the darkest place ever, you know what I mean, by doing that, you know. And so yeah, I kind of lost my way as far as trying to keep up with the stories. But then the movies that came up, you know, and it allowed me to regain like some of that love that I used to have as a kid, but then made me want to re-dive into like what the current storylines, the hot storylines that was happening, that I had like totally missed on all that time. Because some of these elements were being brought into the movies. And so I was like, damn, you know, like some of it I'll be familiar with because it's old stuff, but then they introduce the new stuff and it's like, you know, I ain't gonna know until I talk to you. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, damn, Peeps, what was that? And then I get the story from you or something, you know. So yeah, no, it's just crazy to see that right now. I know we was talking about like how because I know we plan on doing like just a review or a reaction to like some of the Ace Van joints, you know, that he got. If people ain't familiar, he actually does voiceovers over like old cartoons, some stuff like Batman, and like Peeps was mentioning to me about Spider-Man. I think I've seen a couple with him voicing over like some of the old Spider-Man joints. I think I seen one where it was him and Spider-Man and Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And she was wilding out on her about something, you know. So it was funny to see that. But what did you think about? Oh, because I know I was asking you about, even though this ain't I just wanted to start away from Marvel and DC for a second. I was asking you about your thoughts about The Boys, the show The Boys, because I know that just that started coming back on. Like, what did you think about like the three episodes that we got to see?
Still entertaining. Still interested in the story arc. I still think that like a lot of the relationships that have been built up over the last 2 seasons now, going into season 3, are just about to go straight into the shitter. Straight into the shitter.
Right.
And you're already starting to see a lot of that decay now. But also a lot of the social shots that they take in the shows as well, such as Homelander just going off page and just letting people know how he felt. And they said, hey, you've had this crazy increase in the demographic of white males between the ages 19 and 35, but your numbers in the urban communities have dropped. You know what I'm saying? 16%. But luckily, you know, you got this beautiful white girl with you. So that's kind of compensating for this. And, you know, just looking at how much that affects somebody like Homelander, who's supposed to be that variation of Superman. He cares about that.
Right.
Like that holds weight over him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you know, I think that's another good commentary that they're doing on how our society is today. And also like the little things like such as with Starbright, how things was pushed on her at an early age and her response to those things, that grin and bear it
Yeah.
type of mentality. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of um great little storytelling that's being taught, that's being, you know, done in the show, such as another one is Billy Butcher,
Yeah.
and how Billy Butcher basically pushes the kid away because ultimately he does think that he is his father. You know what I'm saying? And he doesn't want to infect that kid with that as well. You know what I'm saying? A lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah. This one of the coolest. This was one of the coolest and most horrible moments at the same time that happened in the show. I thought it was a Homelander scene where he was on the roof with the young lady, and when you realize like that's actually that whole thing of him having a birthday, it being his birthday, um, him choosing that day as a day that he goes and saves somebody every day on that day. That's actually a Superman thing. Like that's something like Superman in his comics, like every day on when his birthday comes around, he goes and does that. And that's actually like an iconic classic moment in one of his books. I want to say it's like All-Star Superman or something like that, where he's talking to the chick. That he talks a chick off of doing that. Superman does. So they have this moment where Homelander is having his birthday and he runs into a situation where a chick is going to jump off. And then they show this image while he was in the midst of, finna save her and trying to talk her off, even though it wasn't, that he didn't care. He didn't give a shit about saving her life, but no, he sees this image of Stormfront and how she killed herself, which is a whole nother that it was so much Homelander shit, dude, that was happening up here. It was crazy to me. But when she killed herself and he realized that, he sees that on the big screen and then just realizes you know what? There was a whole dialogue in between, but he just, after the dialogue, he says to this chick, you should go ahead and kill yourself. And then she didn't want to do it, but then he makes her do it. Or we don't know. That's another great thing. They took the camera away, so you don't even know if he threw her ass off there, because she was the last time you seen both of them in the screen, she was saying, no, I don't want to do it. So it was crazy, bro. It was crazy, but
they should have been playing a little Destiny's Child during that scene, No. Homelander's like, yes. But it's heat vision activating, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that you mentioned that's something even deeper there. The whole Stormfront and her arc is now officially come to an end. But
at least we think so. I'm gonna say something about that. I don't want to interrupt you, so my bad for that. You can go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
No, I just want to throw in that I don't necessarily think that she's gone. And that's why when we was talking earlier about the length of how long this series may go, dude, I'm thinking, because in the comic, Stormfront was a dude. You know what I mean? And I think now, because they was before her killing herself, I think the story arc was going to be we trying to repair her, and they could put on Black Ops stuff, that's basically what they did anyway before they reintroduced her to the story. She did, so she killed a black person, whatever, and then they took her from the public eye and just rebranded her as something else. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think they was planning on doing that, but then now with her being dead, I think they're gonna bring her back as a man. I think as the man version. I think Stormfront is gonna come back as a dude. That's just me. But you can go ahead. Yeah.
You might have something there. I mean, we know that Bot has been into a whole bunch of different stuff. And of course, in this season, they have the vials now that can give you superpowers for 24 hours, I think. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So who knows? They might actually have that brain transplanting powers, and ability to transfer someone's consciousness into another body. We don't know because we never see her body. Right. We just hear that, she bit her tongue off and killed herself.
Right.
That's all we hear. So might be something to the game on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I do think that she did do it to herself, maybe probably off herself, but because that Homelander he's a trip. He had no concerns for this woman whatsoever, even in the state that she was in. Dude, he's still getting hand jobs and stuff from this lady. and she still has to put on this facade it's all about him when he's totally fine, nothing's wrong with him, and she's basically a corpse that's conscious. It was sad.
Yeah, but she's for the team though, man. You know what I'm saying? Give me your handy outs and all that good stuff, man. She's for the team, man. Even with one arm, man, she's spitting. With one arm, she's spitting. You know what I mean? You gotta love it.
I love the whole Woo reference. Oh, That's beautiful, man. But
She even threw in a couple of. She could probably still throw in a couple of sparks here and there. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But
that was
yeah.
sad. That was sad. That looked bad, man. But yeah, no, it was some crazy storylines going on up in that, man. But I would have jumped back into the Marvel DC stuff, and just what we was talking about um, how all of today's complete, I mean, the correctness, or what is it? Political correctness is the word that I'm looking for. That is kind of changed the scope of everything. How some of these characters that we knew forever in the day, you know what I mean, to be, what we know them to be, and being like, we'll have some writers, whether it be in the comics or if you want to take it to the movies. I don't think it's translated much to movies yet, but it more than likely will be, because the comic is going to influence the movie and to some degree the other way. But yeah, no, just all these crazy changes to characters, dude. And we was talking about a few of them, man. That we was talking about, like the little situation with Superboy, that you was telling me about it. It had ran across my ear or something, or I ran across it like on the internet and just wasn't paying attention about his sexuality and all that, because I didn't care about it, for one. But I was just doing what I do. But then, like, you telling me about that whole thing, and first of all, I don't want nobody to take for what we say or what we may say as like us having anything against anybody and their sexuality, what they choose to do in their bedrooms. We don't care about none of that. You know what I mean? Like, that has nothing to do with us. But we do have an opinion about, like, characters who, like, we come to grown and love, and a lot of people have connections with, and then these stark changes out of nowhere just kind of happen to them. Like, what do you think about, like, some of these changes with, or do you have any like particular characters that you could think of that have had like one of these crazy transitions like
Um, yeah, I'm going to use two examples.
that?
Most recently, you've had characters like Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy now as an item. And Poison Ivy's been around since what, 1950, 1960, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And of course, Harley got her start in the animated series, which was like 91, 92. So these characters have been around for 20, 30, 40 years easily.
Right.
And then you just flip them.
Mhm.
I have a problem with that. And this is my opinion. This in no way, shape, or form is the opinion of Roscoe. Uh, it is my opinion.
Right.
And please understand that. Please respect that, just like I will respect your opinion.
Right.
But given that being said, I have a serious problem when you hijack characters who are already established for decades and you decide to flip them in any kind of way, whether it's their sexuality, whether it's their gender, and they're the mainline character. Keep in mind what I just said before you start jumping in the comments like, oh, mainline characters. It's like if for Marvel, it's the 616. If you're doing the ultimate universe, you can do whatever you want with those characters. But when you're doing the mainline, which goes back to the 1930s, don't mess with those things. Don't touch them. What you can do is create new, fresh characters and tell intriguing, great stories that may just happen to be a kid dealing with his own sexuality, such as with John Kent, which is my other character. John Kent is a fairly new character. He was introduced, I think, during the New 52, if I'm not mistaken, because him, Superman, Lois and Clark were living on the New 52 Earth, but they were just living ordinary lives because there was another Superman flying around and he was doing his thing.
Right.
You have this kid, and he ultimately becomes best friends with Damian Wayne, which is Batman's son. And you got a book called Super Sons. Great stories about two boys who are on a completely different opposites of thinking and living life, but they become best friends legitimately. And you grow to love them as they're growing up with you. What's wrong with now? What they did in the comics is they took John away. Okay. John is about 12, 13. They took him away. They had him in some other dimension, and then they brought him back recently. And they aged him up to like 1920, something like that.
Right.
And now he's supposed to be the new Superman because Clark Kent is dead.
Whoa,
And
whoa.
yeah, right. That's
It's
a whole other thing.
no, that just two things just blew my mind just now as you were saying that. One, that you said that he was dead. You know what I mean? Like, how many times are we gonna kill Superman? But but two, the casualness that you said it in, and then was gonna like transition like real easy into another conversation. Like, yeah, just, because Clark Kent is dead, and then then the next day they were used for this transition, right? Like, wait, dude, that's something.
I mean, but that's what DC Comics is doing. You take John, you put him in this whole nother dimension, you age him up on purpose so that you can bring him back because you're going to kill off Clark Kent and you're going to make John the new Superman. But it just so happens that, now that John's back and we aged him up, we can make him gay now. And now we can have our gay Superman. No, I kind of have a little bit of problem with that, only because you could have literally kept John at the same age, but just aged him up gradually with Damian. And then you can have those experiences where John is like, am I? Am I? Am I? Damien's like, I don't know. I ain't like that. You know what I'm saying? But still have a great friendship friendship. There's nothing wrong with a friendship, people.
Right.
Between the two, and Damian ultimately like having a really good heartwarming moment where Damian is like, dude, I don't care what you are. I love you as a brother regardless, man. So whatever you do with your life is what you do with your life. You know what I'm saying? And having Superman, a young Superboy, go through a lot of the struggles of identity. And so many teenage kids would be able to understand that. So many adults would be able to understand that. But no, you decided to say, you know what? We're gonna discontinue any real good storytelling and just age them up and throw them out there and put a gay flag on. That's what I have a serious problem with. If you're creating new characters and you're telling great stories behind them, even if it's with that in the forefront of it, that's fine.
Right.
Do that. I heavily endorse that. But when you start touching characters who are legacy characters, I have a serious grief with that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, and I think you kind of are mouthing the words of a lot of people out there. That when I've heard that argument brought up in the comic circles, a lot of the retort that I hear is like very similar to what you just said. Like, I don't have an issue with it if you introduce a character separate, and not separate in a separate universe or nothing. You could be in the same universe, everything. Like, just make it its own character. Like, you don't have to peel from, you don't have to turn already established character that we've grown into became accustomed to in one way, and then you, just for the sake of shock, and that's another thing. Like, you gonna alienate your base for casuals who ain't gonna be loyal no way. You know what I mean? They just like these mofos go be there just for that hot little second. And then once that storyline plays itself out, which will be very fast, you know, they gone. And then you've lost them. You lost some of your core. You know what I mean? So that ain't good for nobody. That ain't good for nobody. So I don't even understand like that seemed just like not just bad comic sense, but just bad business sense. You know what I mean? Like that's just bad business. Like why would I do something that I know is going I can understand taking risk. I know what you know. I don't want people to not be risky, but take smart risks. You know what I mean? And I think that's a good one to take. Is like just create something else. Don't mess with the established stuff. You know what I mean? If it so happens that let's just say a Wonder Woman type, a Superman type, or a Batman type that's not them, but that lore and all that starts growing on people, and now people become attached to it like those lores, and that character is that, then it is what it is. And that's all that most of that whole world and the people who are in that world are saying, you know. So, and I don't have an issue with it. You know what I mean? Like I started to become so detached, like I was telling you, like man, it became so commonplace that they was like switching up and changing up this stuff. Like I just started saying, you know what, to hell with it. If that's where we at, that's where we at. You know what I mean? And you know, other people, they like, no, we gotta fight this. It's like, how do you fight this shit? You know what I mean? Like they the ones writing it, and they, you know what I mean, and they getting approval from people to okay these stories, the editors or whatever. So these are people who should know better. They, instead of chasing after the monetary, be more in tune with their base, be and know that who you gonna alienate when you create these stories, basically. You know?
And if DC or Marvel, because Marvel has done it, but nowhere near on the scale where DC is doing it now. DC is saying, fuck telling good stories. We just want to get as much shock value as we can. And that's disgusting because your whole purpose is to tell stories. And like I said, with the whole John Kent coming of age story, you're getting the chance to tell stories and also convey this message of understanding, of love in those stories, and also have these characters go on the insane adventures that we know and love. Now, in the instance where we get a universal wipe, and let's say, for instance, the DC universe gets wiped out, and we are literally starting Superman #1, him coming from Krypton, like we're getting a complete wipe of the universe, and you're literally starting over from a zero. And I don't mean, still hold on to continuity. No, everything got wiped out and we're doing everything fresh from scratch. Now you're leaving everything. Now you can do whatever you want with the characters. You can tell whatever story that you want with the characters, because now you're wiping out 80 years of storytelling. You want those old stories, go back and read them. It's like the Jay-Z. You want old Jay-Z, go buy my old shit. You know what I'm saying? This is the new shit. If you want to do that, do that. Because now in my head, I know that this is a completely fresh and new continuity in which you're going to be telling stories from a blank slate.
Right.
Blank slate. You can do whatever you want with them. But whenever you're still connecting those connective tissues directly to stories from 15 characters from 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, no, we know these characters. You just don't do that.
Yeah, that just made me think of something else too. Like, what do you? And we got like less than 10 minutes now. You know, we end up talking forever. But I just wanna ask you, like, what do you think of? Because you brought up something interesting right there about like the possibility of like legacy characters not being there. You know what I mean? Or not putting the focus on the legacy characters like they have been, because I've heard arguments of people like with the DC animated universe, for instance. A lot of argument has been put into a lot of these stories being Batman centric, and regardless of what whose uh, story they trying to tell or supposed to be telling, it could be a Superman story, and somehow Batman is tied to it. It could be Teen Titans story, somehow Batman is tied to it. It could be Wonder Woman, somehow Batman, Flash, somehow Batman. You know what I mean? So, do you have an issue with that at all?
I understand the reason why, but yeah, I still have an issue with it. You have to be able to let those characters stand on their own. But how you do that is by telling great stories. And I know personally, I've got a lot of Green Lantern books in the back. You can do a lot of cool stuff with the Green Lantern Corps, and it's not just Hal or John. You could do things with Guy Gardner or dang, I forgot. It's like 5, 6 new lanterns now that are from Earth, but you could tell incredible stories with these characters. The Batman effect is only there for cash grab value.
Yeah,
That shock and awe of having Batman randomly in there, and they're like, "Oh, Batman's in it," so we know people will watch. But you have to trust the process. You have to be able to say, "Hey, at one time, Batman was that new guy on the block, and he built his base." Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, heck, even Superman to a point. You got to let those guys fly.
I'm,
And the only way that you
I'm
do
gonna say
that,
this. I'm gonna sneak this in here, peeps. My bad, but I like Batman provide comfort for me. In that in the regard that I wanna see these stories and from these new people and all that. I want to get that what you was talking about, but when all else fails, like if this shit ain't rocking right, at least Batman's there. You know what I mean? So
and
so
that's the way they think.
yeah,
That's the way they think. They're like, well, it might be, maybe it's ass, but at least we got a cool Batman scene in here with him whipping some ass and stuff. Hey, people will definitely remember that. And it's like, no, like Justice League, going back to the 2000s, unbelievable show. One of the probably, I'm gonna dare say, greatest animated American animated cartoon as far as superheroes.
yeah.
That show was not about Batman and Superman. It was about Green Lantern, John Stewart,
Mm-hmm.
Hawk Girl.
Oh yeah,
It was
yeah,
about Wonder Woman. Her coming of age in that show.
yeah,
It wasn't about the big guns. What carried that show was those other members of the league, Martian Manhunter. You know what I'm saying? And it legitimate because they told great stories. They had great action.
yeah,
DC definitely needs to look at the Tim Sale verse and
right,
take some serious pointers from that.
yeah. No, they. When you mentioned that, they did.
I'm sorry, Bruce Tim. I'm sorry, Bruce
No,
Tim.
go ahead, go ahead. What? No. What'd you say? I didn't hear you that time.
I said Tim Sales, if I'm not mistaken. That was the wrong artist. I mean, wrong creator.
Okay,
Bruce Tim, the
okay,
Bruce Tim universe.
okay. Yeah, no, but yeah, no, that was like a great show. Like that Justice League, man, they told some great stories, dude. Like, oh my God, they had some iconic stories in that one. So yeah, you probably right about that, but I don't know what they're gonna do at this point. You know what I mean? Like if like you were saying, I don't know if you said that on camera or not about how if they just stray away from that whole trying to be a connective thing like Marvel, If they get away from that and they focus in on these, like what we were saying about with the current Batman, the one that they just released. That was like a lot of people they could feel how they feel about it, whatever. I thought it was decent too. Like I liked it. I like the grounded effect more than people would think that I do. Like a lot of, because I will applaud and laud over the bigger and more spectacular joints, with a lot of effects going on. But I love when all of that stuff is out of the way. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, I appreciate the stripped down effect, and when you just break it down to people and their morality and their motives in certain situations, you know what I mean, and why they do stuff. So I'm very much into learning about the lores of people, and you don't learn about that stuff until you get to the ground level of this shit. You know what I mean? So even if they did that with the more spectacular people, you know what I mean? Like I think there's ways to still do like the Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman stuff, but just attack it from different angles. What if they was doing stuff to where like it's a Superman story, but now we seeing it from Jimmy Olsen's angle. You know what I mean? Like, what does a day in the life of Superman look like from his angle? You know what I mean? Or Lois's angle. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So it's a lot of ways to still have those characters. That's why, like for me, I don't mind if they incorporate them, because I'm still trying to see if there's a way where they still like spinning. They still could take that main person and still take something and make new stuff from that, if that makes sense, But we got like 2 minutes and some change before this particular one ends. But you got anything you want to throw in there before we close this out, bro?
Just something that you were saying real briefly. I would love to see Steven Spielberg, or at least Steven Spielberg back in his prime, do a Superman movie. I think that would have been a really magical, really uplifting story. I think Steven Spielberg has those elements in his directing that would have been perfect for Superman. But diversify your bonds, people. Diversify your bonds.
Yeah. No, now when you mention that, that made me think about another old school director, the one who made all the coming of age movies that are in the 80s. I feel like that was John Landis. I feel like his name was, and I think about him, and now like what type of, if you throw a director like that into like Marvel or DC realm, and like what, because I think he would bring like the element that something similar to what James Gunn brings to the table, almost. You know what I mean? In a different regard, because James Gunn does it with like from a sort of like a comedic aspect when it's done. When John Landis, I think he could bring out more of the people aspect. But I see it's finna get ready to end for us soon. So like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the share button, hit the playlist option. This one we'll just put in reaction shows. But now I will come up with a playlist for this. You will see us have more just conversations about this. If you have a conversation you want us to talk about, we can do that. And get in the comments and jump into all that. We'll get it out there. We ain't got much time. So without saying too much more, we gone. We gotta go. We can't stay. See you later. Doses.